she's in film and all those wonderful things. So
nice.
I get the friends and family discount.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Okay, just close this. Okay, and I'm just going to start because, so what I will do is read your bio, let you fill it in with whatever. I've been listening to a lot of your other podcasts when you were a guest, and wow, this is going to be fun.
Okay, cool.
All right. Welcome to another episode of Teen Minds Redefined, where we strive to redefine the relationships we have with our teens. We want to foster them to become their own authentic selves as they grow into these beautiful human beings on the planet. And today I have a wonderful guest, Dr. Alan Mueller. And Dr. Alan Mueller is a passionate advocate for authentic transformation. He started Adaptive Challenge Consulting in 2014 to help organizations navigate their greatest challenges through listening and real conversations. Dr. Mueller has worked in finance, sales, higher education, and even hospitality. Through his unique journey of failures and successes, he has gained insight into organizational leadership and development. Dr. Mueller always brings authenticity and humor with him, whether assisting organizations on their inclusion efforts or helping them evaluate their programs. Welcome, Dr. Alan Mueller.
Thank you so much. That bio makes me feel important.
Well, you are.
Thanks.
And full disclosure, I want to say this because we find our guests from very different places. I do anyway. I never pay a guest. They never pay me to guest. But we look on, we can be on Facebook groups. I could be on Instagram and see somebody's energy and not know how many followers they have or what they have or who they are, and just say, oh, I really like their energy. So I believe we were on Facebook group for, I think, guesting on podcasts.
Uh-huh.
And your blurb about your kids and your life. And I'm like, okay, I want him on here. Energy is like standard. And so the energy that we exchange is never money. It is the energy where we feel like this is what I want to bring to my audience. These are parents of teens, mainly. I do hope that parents can, coerce their kids into listening to some of these podcasts on the way to the mall. If you want to ride, this is what you have to listen to.
Do kids still go to the mall? I thought that stopped in the 80s.
Okay, listen. We're gonna have a problem if you're gonna age me through this whole.
Well, I feel like we're in a pretty similar zone. So I mean, I feel like we had the best music and drank from garden hoses and rode on rusty slides and things. Yeah.
And my kids are wearing the clothes I wore in the 80s. So
they're back in style.
To the mix. That's right.
Wow.
So I want to start with, you have love and logic parenting, developmental psychology of teens. I want to talk about that. And I find that when I sit down and say, oh, I want to ask this, and I want to ask this, and I want to ask this, and then we start talking and we never get to there because then we start talking about something else that's really important. So talk to me first about what you do, who you are, this whole kid thing that you have in your house.
Yes. So
So
I spent 20 years in sort of a career working with college students. And so worked in this thing called student affairs. And student affairs is all the things that make colleges and universities tick outside the classroom. So it's the career center, it's the counseling center, it's the residence halls, it's the multicultural center, it's all those things. And then I'm married to a school counselor. My wife works with little children, kindergarten through 5th. But both of us, at the heart of what we studied in our master's degrees, was developmental psychology, right? It's that the idea, and if your listeners aren't familiar with that notion, it's just the idea that when someone's a kindergartner, they're making sense of the world in a certain way. And by the time they're a third grader, they're going to be making sense of the world in a more complex way, and on and on and on. And then when they're a teenager, and then when they're a young adult, etc. And so developmental psychology and the idea that people are learning and growing constantly is at the heart of what both of us studied formally. Then my wife went to a seminar on love and logic parenting and brought a book home right when we had our first kid. And oh my gosh, it was the best thing ever. I have a 19-year-old and a 15-year-old. I have never, ever had a temper tantrum in my house. I've never had a slammed door with them yelling, "You don't understand," which is things that people told me I was going to have with teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
And I think my experience as a Gen Xer, I mean, I think that I was used to that. And the Love and Logic system, I can't say enough. It's an amazing system. And two, the thing that's really cool is when I was working in colleges and universities, I'm helping students plan the next formal dance, or I'm helping them with a leadership program, but I'm trying to draw out the learning. And the Love and Logic system fit me so well. And I told my wife, I'm like, this is sort of what I do in my profession organically, like be empathetic and hold them accountable, and then support them if they need support. And don't forget to remind them that consequences happen. Like the Love and the Logic, that was a part of my practice anyway. And now there was this book that helped us do it with our kids. So
Holy Grail.
Yeah.
Empathy is so, I work a lot with CPS Ross Green, and it's all about empathy, and it's all about, expectations and behavior. The slamming of the doors and the temper tantrums are just secondary, just a piece of communication saying, I can't do what you need me to do, and I don't know how to handle that. And when we put that lens on and we keep it on tight, our relationships with our kids, with anyone, it's like people, kids, students do well when they can.
Right.
And so when they can't, then it's time for us to sit down and have those conversations. And I think it's so important. So it's funny, I worked in student affairs for the last 3 years. For 25 years, I worked with very high needs students in high school, nonverbal, ASD, physical aggression, a lot of that. I wore a lot of Kevlar for a lot of years.
Yeah.
And then the last few years of my role was also in student affairs in a high school. So helping kids get ready for post-secondary, and it overlapped because I was also that disabilities advocate where, there's a lot of steps you can take. There's a lot of supports in colleges and universities now. And so it's that transition. So I feel you. First of all, I send a trophy to your wife, because those younger kids, nope. I don't know how teachers do it. And I love teenagers. I love to sit in a room with them. I love their energy. I love their honesty most of the time. And I say this all the time. I sometimes rather spend time with teenagers than some adults, but the younger kids, hats off.
And I'll tell you, in our community in North Carolina, we live in a metro region with about 2.5 million people. That's 3 mid-sized cities. But in our county, she works at the only inclusion school, elementary school, that's an inclusion school. And then the college I worked at 2 colleges ago, which was the only Quaker college in the South of the U.S., was known very, very well in the autistic community as an autism spectrum friendly campus. So we had a lot of students, and we weren't at the universal design stage, and we weren't there, but we had it on our radar. Like, in other words, we were striving towards it. And so there's other stories I could tell there about a class I taught called Improv Comedy and the Art of the Job Interview.
Oh, yes.
And so I'm an improv comedian. I've been doing it for about 9 years. And we had this little mini semester, a little like 3.5 week term where we could teach one experience-based course. And I ran the Career Center. And I was like, how do I make applying for jobs not boring? Because, it's boring. And so I started teaching this class called Improv Comedy and the Art of the Job Interview, because every job interview you'll ever do is improv, right? I mean, someone asks you a question you don't have.
Yep.
And then I got to work through some of my biases because sorry. So sorry. I got a phone call and I pressed decline. So for your editor's purposes. Okay. So I was teaching a course called Improv Comedy and the Art of the Job Interview. And the campus where I worked was an autism spectrum friendly campus. And students who I had taught previously on the spectrum, would typically bring me an accommodation. And in the US system, they bring you an accommodation where you alter the course a little bit to provide an environment free of distraction, those kinds of things. And I realized my course could have been called Distraction 101, because improv comedy is like, how do you navigate the art of distraction, right? And so when I had an autistic student or two take the course, initially I had to think to myself, I had some biases I had to unpack, right? And then once we got into it, and once you understand that being a good improv comedian is not about being creative and witty, it's about following rules.
Bingo.
And it not only is it about following rules, it's also about, like, the best improv comics have this amazing ability to sort of zone out on the nonverbals that their partner is giving. And if you know something about folks' autism spectrum disorder, it's not